Hello and welcome to this short video about IGCSE Biology. And tonight we're going to make a video about section 13.1, excretion, where we go over waste products and we go over the kidney. As always, the videos here are made for my class, but anyone can use them if they want to. Any mistakes here are mine and mine alone and does not reflect on either Cambridge or my school. So we are going to go over section 30.1 here in the IGCSE syllabus, and it's a section many of my students find a little complicated, and we are going to go over how we can make it a little less complicated. As always, when you're working with Cambridge IGCSE, it's a very good idea to look at the syllabus. Pretty much everything you need to know about a given subject is in the syllabus. And quite interesting, this is one of the part of the biology syllabus where there's a huge difference between the core and the extended or / supplement. Because in core, you only need to know that CO2 is lost through the lungs, that the kidneys excrete urea and excess water and ions, and that you can point on where the kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra are on a diagram. While when we go into extended, we have to understand way more about the actual function of the kidneys, how filtration and reabsorption happens, how formation of urine happens. Also, we need to know about the liver's role in breaking down protein and assimilating protein. And we need to know about deamination and that process. So what I am going to do here is I am going to go over the core part as well as the extended part. So let's see how that goes. And it's a good idea, always check the syllabus. So if you remember back in section 1 in IGCSE Biology, excretion is one of the characteristics of living organisms. And basically it's a way of describing removal of waste product from metabolic reactions. There is at all time a lot of chemical reactions happening in the cell, and of course that sense also within the organism. And whenever there are these kind of reactions, there will be waste products we need to get rid of because otherwise they will be harmful. For example, the mitochondria in my body right now is burning glucoses, and when they do that, they release CO2. So CO2 is a waste product for me. And if it wasn't removed from my blood, well, then CO2 acts as an acid and it will drop the pH of my blood quite quickly. And quite frankly, I would very, very quickly become very ill and will possibly die. So it's important that we can get rid of CO2. For humans, we do that, or pretty much all mammals, we do that with breathing, or fish or the gills. So when I breathe in, I not only get O2, but it also releases the CO2. So just breathing out is actually a way of excreting CO2. Plants during the day can of course use the CO2 for photosynthesis, but during the night they can also excrete CO2, and they do that through the stomata. So this is a very simple way of excretion. But we have other waste products in our body that get transported around in the blood, which we can't just have the lungs get rid of. So we can't exhale them, so we have to find another way of get rid of them. And that is where the liver and the kidney steps in. So one of the more important waste products is urea. And urea is formed in the liver when we break down amino acids. Being able to break down amino acids, getting energy from that is super smart, but having too much urea in the blood is toxic, so we need to get rid of it. And urea is removed from the blood by our wonderful, wonderful kidneys. When that happens, we are left with some water and some urea and some salt iron and stuff, and that is then what we call urine. Urine is then stored in the bladder and then released through the urethra when we go peeing. There are other animals that do this in a different way, but all animals need to have a way to deal with urea so it doesn't become a toxic problem from the organism. Of the three macronutrients, we have fat, carbohydrates, and protein. Protein is the one we really can't store. Fat we can store quite easily. Carbohydrates we can store in the liver, but protein is generally either used or broken down. So, for example, if I just did a CrossFit workout today and I eat some protein, my body's probably going to use a lot of that protein to repair the muscles. But at other times, there will be more amino acids than needed. Some of them must then be broken down and removed. Now, proteins and the amino acids in them contain energy, so the body don't want to waste it. They split the protein up by enzymes, so the part that can be used for chemical energy is kept, while the nitrogen we can't really use is turned into the urea, which we then need to get rid of. And that process is called deamination, and we need to have a look at that on the next part. Here we see a diagram of deamination where our carbon skeleton, which can be used for energy, is separated, and then the amine group is then turned to ammonia, which then turned into urea, which then gets into the blood, filtered in the kidney, and excreted in urine. But it's just to give you an idea on how the amino acid is cut into the part we use for energy and the part which then get excreted. Here you see a diagram of the human kidney, and when you look at that, it's easy to see why kidney beans are called kidney beans, but by jolly, they do look like a kidney. Kidney is one of the organs where we actually have a spare. We have two kidneys, and we can actually survive on just one. That is one of the reasons why people can donate a kidney to someone who might have kidney failure and will need a new kidney. We have blood running into the kidney through the renal artery, and we have blood exiting again through the renal vein. You can also see the urethra here, where we collect the urine. But now we're going to go into a little more detail about how this happens in our kidney, and this is extended only. So the actual process of forming urine is quite complex, and be aware that the story I'm giving here is a short version. We have blood running in from the renal artery, which has quite a high pressure. When the blood comes in here, it divides out in the part called the glomerulus, and it works kind of like a filter, a coffee filter, where the bigger molecules, like red blood cells, white blood cells, they can't get through. But smaller molecules, like water, urea, glucoses, and ions, they then passes into the nephrons. So now we have the urea separated, but we've also separated a lot of the stuff we like, mainly stuff like water, glucoses, and some of the irons. So we need to get that back. So the second part of the work the kidney is doing is reabsorbing the stuff we don't want to get rid of. We don't want to get rid of the water. So you can see this is kind of, you're cleaning your house by throwing all the small things out, and then you're bringing back the things you want to keep. If that analogy helps you understanding what is happening here in our kidneys. Here you have a diagram of the reabsorption in the kidney. So we get a lot of the stuff pushed out during the filtration process then, and we have some water lost due to osmosis, and then we need to reabsorb the things we need. So we reabsorb most of the water from the urine. And that's really important because otherwise we would lose many, many liters of water every day when we're peeing. Now, water intake is of course important, but our body are also able to regulate how much urine we are losing by either concentrating or diluting the urine depending on our intake. The important thing here is to remember that we get everything like the urea, everything over first, and then we reabsorb the water, for example. We reabsorb the glucoses. We reabsorb some of the ions. Um, so we end up with only the waste products we want to get rid of and some water in our urine. So our urea is mixed with some salt and some water, and then it flows into the bladder. But by the time it does that, most of the water is reabsorbed. And if you think our reabsorption is good, think about, for example, bears who's doing hibernation. They are really good at reabsorbing because you don't want a bear to wake up in the middle of winter to go out to pee. We have different hormones, especially vasopressin, that helps control the rate of reabsorption of water from the kidneys. Um, the best way of understanding this is to understand that some things work as the diuretic, means you want to pee more. One of them is alcohol. And if anyone ever tried having like 6 and 7 beers, not that I recommend it, it's not healthy, but if you had, um, you will have experienced that suddenly you really not need to start peeing. And my wonderful, wonderful biology teacher once explained to me, he said, Peter, isn't it weird that you can drink like 6, 7 pints and still be thirsty the next morning? And then they explained it's because that's how the kidneys work, and with alcohol, you lose more water and thereby be more dehydrated. The level of dehydration can be seen by the color of the urine. If the urine is like totally clear, you're probably drinking too much water or had too much beer. If it's like lightly yellow, our hydration is normal. If it starts getting darker, it's a sign you're dehydrated. And if you start getting over into the brown and red, it can even be a sign of like impending kidney failure, rhabdomyolysis, or other diseases. Um, so, for example, when we are out trekking in the mountains, I recommend that people at least once a day check the color of the urine to see how well they are hydrated. Luckily, our body is quite good at sensing dehydration, and when we get dehydrated, the signal goes to the brain, and then, of course, we get thirsty and want to drink more. But doing like endurance events, hard working outside, stuff like that, we can still get dehydrated, and dehydration is quite unhealthy and really reduces the output of the muscles and also make our brain works less. So it's a good idea to be aware of dehydration. So here's a short recap of this chapter. Metabolic reactions create waste products. Here we're mainly talking about urea. The body needs to get rid of them because these waste products can be toxic in high amounts. Breaking down amino acids releases urea into the blood. Filtration in the kidney removes urea and then reabsorbs the water and other important molecules. And then our waste products leave our body in the form of urine. And that's the main of the part of the chapter. I'm kidding you not.